Hello everybody and welcome to another Tech here. It's been a while, but we're here continuing the Dungeon Investigators with Jim Culver and his rod that may not work with this deck one day. Yes, if you are up to date with all the hot goss and opinions in the ARKHAM community, you know that the Rod of Carnamagos, which we're going to get to, has a little bit of it's a little bit, I guess, controversial in how people view the card. And this deck is a deck that I wanted to build when I first read and saw how it worked as written. So this is what this deck's all about. However, one day this deck might not work. So Jim Culver brings his magic rot wand and uses it to cast dark spells on his enemies. He also uses it to, well, it's a little bit controversial, but we take advantage of the token revealing part of the Rod of Carnamagos to make Song of the Dead and Curse synergy even stronger. I'm going to get to more details, what all of this means in a few. For people who might not know, it'll make more sense when we actually see the Rod of Carnamagos on the thing. But this is as I said, this is the deck I wanted to do when I first saw how the card works, specifically with Song of the Dead, which I'll also get to, but it's a bad card. And this makes it not great, but a little bit the tiniest amount more reliable. For the expansions, notably going forward, there's going to be some changes to this series that I'm going to be talking about in this video. The first of the two changes is that I'm only going to be including the final deck list for the expansions required, mostly because level 0 decks, you can kind of just find your own stuff that you want to put in here, so it kind of makes it a little bit easier for me to put this slide together, and also kind of just like realistically the amount of use case that people are going to have. You're going to have to like make your own level 0 decks, because a lot of these level 0 cards aren't going to last that long, so it feels a bit weird to be like, buy this expansion for only that card. So rather use what you got for the level 0. Speaking of the level 0, here's our starting point. It actually is a pretty traditional kind of like curse spellcaster deck here. Armageddon is going to be how we're going to be dealing our damage at level 0. It's expensive, so we have luckily Scrimshaw Charm to help us, you know, like get the resources for it, while also putting the curse tokens in here. And then we got all of McBride. Ritual Candles to make the curse tokens weaker and all that, like weaker for us to deal with. So yeah, pretty simple. And then here is the final upgraded version. We're going to talk about all the cards and come check about this deck one more time at the end, but this is how it's going to be looking once we get all 29 experience into the deck. As always, these decks are here just as kind of like a template for you to to be inspired by. Also spelled Rhapsody wrong. Let's not, oh no, Rhapsody is spelled right. No, it is spelled wrong. I was like, there's supposed to be an A at the end. No, it's looking weird because the O and the S are mixed up. Good job, Justin. There's always one. It's like a little Easter egg in each video. Find the spelling error. So yeah, let's talk about the cards, starting, of course, with the Rod of Carnamagos. The Rod of Carnamagos has an ability where you Lightning Bolt Exhaust, choose a non-enemy enemy at any location, reveal 5 random Chaos tokens to the Chaos bag. For each Curse token revealed this way, you may search your bonded cards for a Rot event and attach it to that enemy. Each Rot event affects that enemy, whether it be make it so they can't attack, they get lower stats, they can't move, they take damage, they bleed out over time, or they give you money when they're defeated. This is a very cool, flavorful, fun card, and it was my favorite card that was spoiled when it came out. However, people were quick to point out that when you actually do this during a skill test, because it's a lightning bolt, you can also trigger the effects on other cards. So this means we're going to be quote-unquote exploiting, even though I personally don't view it as exploitation. I view it as kind of more one of those things where it's a cool, fun synergy that you're going to try and then realistically probably get sick of and never do it again. So we're going to be trying it out in this deck for this. And all of my other future Rod of Carnamagos decks, if I ever visit them, are not going to be focusing on this kind of thing. This is only for Jim Culver, and this also is subject to change, so it might not work one day. So basically how it is during the skill test, you have 2 Lightning Bolt windows before and after you commit cards. During that, you activate the Rod, and then those are skill tokens that are revealed during that skill test, which means it's going to work with both Armageddon and Song of the Dead positively. We're not going to be taught like the Rots are great targets, but it's like part of our enemy management that we're going to be doing this deck. This is an enemy, like this is a fighter, a goon, and we're going to be here to defeat the enemies as they show up. And the Rot Wand, while also helping us to exploit our cards, it's also here to be enemy management as well. Because you get to choose, you can like put the right ones that you want on, but let's talk about how this triggers with Armageddon and Song of the Dead. So, these are our 2 kill spells that we're going to be using. They're very expensive experience-wise, and we actually did not run any XP boosting. Consider changing that if you want to get to these cards faster, but I'm not running any of these from this. Also, consider maybe, like, if you don't want to play Song of the Dead, don't. But it does work positively with Rot Wand, the Rod of carnamagos, as currently written as of, what the day is this? The 30th of January. So, when you are revealing those tokens during this test, if you reveal a symbol token, a skull token during the Song of the Dead, it's going to deal +2 damage. So you don't need to rely on just Olive or pulling the token naturally. Armageddon, each curse token revealed are going to trigger as well, which means that you're going to be able to be constantly refilling your Armageddon, which is pretty damn sweet. Because of this, the Rod is the most important card in our deck, and we're going to be looking at finding it ASAP. So I hope that makes sense, right? So going back to the wand, all of these tokens are revealed, and then it's for each curse token revealed during this attack, you may deal 1 damage to enemy location or place 1 charge on Armageddon. This is understandable why people are upset about the interaction. It's 1, powerful, 2, arguably unintuitive, but that is also eye of the beholder. But I think it is a very powerful effect, and it kind of maybe defeats the purpose of Armageddon. Or, alternatively, if you're looking from a different angle, it kind of makes it a little bit more fun and exciting to do something really silly with your Armageddon that's unique to it. But yeah, that's kind of the function of the deck for that thing, is where the exploit of the Rod of carnamagos comes into play. Keeping this going, we have other tools in our deck to help us provide the consistency in hitting our curse tokens or skull tokens with Armageddon and Song of the Dead, and that is All of McBride 2. All of McBride 2, I've talked about her a lot on this channel. She's very good at what she does. She's just the reliability of going to 4 tokens from 3 tokens does a lot to increase her playability. I have a whole video about it where I talked about Father Mateo being good now, potentially. That's the question, is Father Mateo good now? And All of McBride is a big reason for that change. This is really nice because it allows us to hit the tokens that we want, but it also can help us our trumpet, our Jim's ability, and other things as well. Olive is very nice here and very nice for Jim Culver generally, but also has a nice added bonus that is coming in this deck. 2 additional methods we have for damage are Spectral Razor and Dawnstar. Spectral Razor provides good burst damage and action compression, and if you're looking at adding further experience to this deck, I highly recommend upgrading these cards to the level 2 version, because they are very easy to take advantage of hitting symbol tokens with Olive, McBride, and I think Rod might work with it as well. I actually did not check that. Dawnstar provides us some damage depending on curse pills, and truthfully, I'm unsure if this actually works during the Rod pills. Are the tokens resolved? I don't think they are resolved. But I think they are there, so I don't know, like, if they're revealed. You ignore the modifiers. Like, are you ignoring, like, do their modifiers count? Like, it's one of those things, like, I'm not too sure. But you know what, honestly, it's your life, play it as you want. I'm not gonna judge. But they're also, the Dawnstar is also still really relevant for all of McBride tests. Being able to ignore the modifier or curse tokens when you want to and also deal out some damage has some good potential. It'd be really fun to, like, curse token on Olive, and then, like, get, like, a skull and, like, a -1, and then ignore those Dawnstar, like, with Dawnstar, and then just pick off an enemy for 2. Sounds like a pretty fun deal. Is it good? That's another question. We're not here to answer if it's good. We're here to answer, does Jim Culver want to do this in this deck? And the answer to that is yes. Keeping this going here, we got some of our curse token addition adders and our economy. So Scrimshaw Charm is a hell of a drug. Actually, this card's crazy. It cannot be trusted in the hands of Travis after we played it and he put it in his Skids deck. This card is an insane curse generator and insane curse payout. It's absolutely freaking nuts what this is able to do in terms of getting curse tokens and money into the bag or your hands, respectively. Yeah, so it's very good, but you're going to need to have your teammates be prepared. As always, I recommend with a curse deck, if you're playing a curse deck, everyone on the team is going to need to run some sort of mitigation, and Scrimshaw Charm is an example of why you need to do that. Deep Knowledge is card draw. Be greedy with it until you find what you need, and then consider sharing it around the table. And lastly, we have a 1 of Tempt Fate. The reason is because we're not a paradoxical deck. We don't want too many blessing tokens ruining our Rod of carnamagos pulls. So that's the reason why Tempt Fate ultimately ends up as a 1-of in this deck. It's an easy card to put into your deck when you're playing with Curses, Blesses, or Paradox, because it doesn't actually exist. What I mean by that is it's free to play. Like, it's going to be very hard-pressed to not actually resolve this card. Our resource economy continues with Voice of Ra. We can use all of during this test, but remember that you need to ignore 2 of the tokens, so just choose 2 of the non-symbol tokens that you are revealing, and then, you know, when the bag is loaded with curses, this is going to hit 7 pretty constantly. Parallel Fates and Glory are both additional card draw. We want to find the Rod of Carnamagos ASAP, as well as our spell assets, which admittedly, we're only running 4 of them in our deck, but that's why we do have some powerful card draw in the form of Parallel Fates, Deep Knowledge, and Glory. So the more tools we have for that, the better we'll be because of it. First up, we got Ritual Candles here to give us some symbol token protection. 2 in play eliminate the risk of cursed tokens completely. So how that works is after is revealed during a skill test you're performing, you get +1 skill value for this test. So I heard through the grapevine that this also works very positively with the Rod of Carnamagos, because those symbol tokens are revealed during a test that you want to pass, and you maybe just want like a little half unexpected courage, you can use Rod of Carnamagos, and then all those symbol tokens revealed during the Rod pull are going to give you +1 skill value. That is pretty gross. That is that is when like the people who do not like the Rod of Carnamagos interaction, a big reason is because of that. It opens up like a can of worms of revealing tokens during skill tests. Again, this is not a video. I mean, this is the video to talk about this. I'm always a little bit like, yeah, but what's the harm in it, right? And I think that this is one of the interactions that is going to feel really gross when you trigger it. So I guess all I have to say to that is have fun triggering it. Holy Rosary gives us a brain boost, which is nice in the early stages of our deck, and the Horror Soak ain't too terrible either. In the long term, if you get more experience, I would definitely upgrade this to the Jewel of Aureolus, because card draw and resources are really good, and we're going to be resolving symbol tokens like crazy. Notably, this deck is built with Taboo in mind, and I highly recommend you also play it with the Taboo, because a lot of cards get better when they care about symbol tokens, because as you see, Ritual Candles there just says those like Skull, Cultist, Tablet, and Squid. As it currently is tabooed, it only cares about symbol tokens now, which also opens up the door for curse tokens. Lastly, we have Cat Mask to give us some brain or fist boost in a pinch, but we don't have any way to get Doom easily. These won't be easily refilled. You can swap this with another kill spell or economy or something fun as you decide. As you upgrade or even at level 0, if you don't feel like you want to play the Cat Mask. I still think Cat Mask is fine for most Mystics, because realistically, you're gonna get it refilled from agendas, so it's kind of like six, maybe 4 free unexpected courages, which is not a terrible rate for Mystics when you want to use the brain boost for your spells, or alternatively the fist boost if you just need to fight an enemy with Jim, putting yourself at 5 fist. But I also think upgrading out of these, I should have done it sooner in mine. I was looking at the deck when I came through. If I had to make some changes, I would lower this down to 1 and maybe or remove them completely. But I still think that they are going to be important pieces for your consistency from scenario 1 to like scenario 4 or 5, and then you can start cutting them. This one should be obvious. Normally Promise of Power is played because its effect is great. However, we also get some juicy curse tokens out of it, which is just gravy. Use it to protect your friends during the Mythos phase, or to provide even more assurance for someone taking an important scenario test. Notably as well, having effects like this, and even Cat Mask, is nice when we're playing Armageddon. Because the last thing you want, I mean, it is fine to reveal like 4 curse tokens and fail with an Armageddon. But could you imagine if you revealed 4 curse tokens and passed with an Armageddon? That would just make it that much better. So having a little bit of redundancy that is easy to use or repeatable in the form of Cat Mask, that makes it even nicer. To close out our card showcase, we have Occult Reliquary. This gives us an additional hand slot to hold the Rod of Carnamagos, plus 2 Ritual Candles, or +1 candle in Jim's Trumpet, an additional Arcane slot to hold extra Armageddon or a Scrimshaw Charm, and a Holy Rosary for the accessory slot. Because we can swap out the new assets whenever they're into play, be sure to use what is most beneficial in the current moment. Yeah, I think that also with the Holy Rosary, you could change it to something else. But I think realistically, at a certain point, you're going to be done with Scrimshaw Charm. So you can just when you play an extra Armageddon or your Ritual Candles or your Trumpet, you can just discard your Scrimshaw Charm if you're holding both it and the Holy Rosary. Occult Reliquary's power is it allows you to be adaptable. So be adaptable. For upgrade order in this deck, As always, I say adjust how you find the deck performs and fill gaps as needed. Also, I did not include any experience boosting cards in this deck because of just how it kind of goes. As you see, we're not really upgrading a lot of spells, and we're not really upgrading a lot of cards. Like, we are, but we aren't. So maybe down the rabbit hole is going to be a little bit of an issue. So these are like things for you to consider. However, I think I left them out. Feel free to add them as you want. There's also the new Great Work that's coming out in Drowned City whenever that box releases. Feel free to throw that in as well. But as you can see, our most important upgrade is Rod of Carnamagos. And then you kind of just get everything else. You just kind of get Olive, Armageddon, Song of the Dead as needed, like kind of like prioritize probably the Armageddon over Olive McBride. Like if you get 6 experience in the first scenario, I would do 2 Rods and 1 Olive McBride. And then I would focus on the Armageddons and then the Song of the Dead. I keep on saying Armageddon, which I guess if you play the game Arma, might be accurate. Yeah, these are the upgrade order. And a new addition to the series, the second new addition. This was inspired by Eric when we did the Jenny Mask Mania deck. Eric asked the question of what do you think are the weak points of this deck? And then I also decided to add some mulligan priority. So this is going to be going forward for these. So, weaknesses. Obviously, this deck may become unplayable if the Rod of Carnamagos is changed. Second, like the Mass deck, there are a lot of pieces you need to put together to become fully functional. You're going to need the Rod, a spell, and a curse generator, meaning that you may need to sequence your setup optimally. This naturally happens in decks where you need a lot of assets to get going. However, luckily you're still a Mystic, so if you get an Armageddon out, you can like fire off a few charges or like use... and then save the last one when the Rod is out and see if you can maybe refill it with cheesing the Rod a little bit. So while you have traditional kill spells, you need to focus on more unconventional methods of enemy management, so lean on your Rod of Carnamagos hard. The enemy management has kind of been changing in Arkham Horror. You could just punch people to death, but there actually are so many ways now to get like free enemy management that's like not as efficient or not as removal normal. But like, for example, the Rod of Carnamagos is, while it is a tool that we're using to take advantage of like some exploits again, it also is enemy management. So use it as such, right? Like, while yes, Armageddon, Song of the Dead, and the Spectral Razor feel like the only enemy management in our deck, there also is the Rod of Carnamagos, which we're going to be leaning on hard. The XP path of this may have no obvious... As I said, this is what I already said. This was like the XP stuff is the other one. For the mulligan, priority number 1 is Rod of Carnamagos, and then you're going to want to grab some curse generation and optimally a kill spell. Grab resource economy over card draw economy. The reason for this is 1... Our main resource economy is Scrimshaw Charm. So you see both Rod and Scrimshaw Charm have the stars. Those are like our 2 peak cards. Those are the cards we want the most. So the reason why, if I had to choose like multiple forms of economy in my deck, I'd want resource economy mainly because Armageddon is expensive. And that is a card that we're going to want to be hitting and playing when the time comes. If I had to look at like a perfect opening hand, I don't think it would be this hand here. I mean, like, to me, a perfect opening hand is literally the first 3 cards. If I had the Rod, Scrimshaw, and Armageddon, I would feel like I would have a good chance of winning the scenario. So those, I think, are like the priority cards. You're going to want a kill spell, optimally Armageddon for those kill spells. And the reason, like, again, resource economy is because Armageddon is expensive. Olive McBride is a great hit too, but I think that the most important thing, if you do not... the only cards I would keep are Scrimshaw Charm and Rod of Carnamagos. Armageddon, I'd consider keeping most of the time too, but if I did not hit the Rod or the Scrimshaw, Armageddon would go in an attempt to find that. Of course, these mulligan advice changes from scenario to scenario, from day to day, but that is this new inclusion. So if you like this new inclusion into the series, definitely let me know. Otherwise, here is the deck in all of its glory again, as we saw earlier. This deck, again, I think it's not going to be in this form in the future. I think that Rod of Carnamagos is eventually going to get changed, so I highly recommend trying it out and living life to the fullest in your Rot Wand ways. We have 1 Dungeon Investigator left to go. There's an Easter egg on this page. Can you find it? After ARKHAM Pete, I'll be hopping to the new Drowned City Investigators. While I haven't done any build with those investigators before, I'm still going to try to do different ideas with them rather than just like what my first thing is, how this series started with the Hemlock Vale Investigators. Because I'm going to wait till the full Drowned City box to be revealed, after ARKHAM Pete, this series may be on pause for a little bit. Just until the box actually gets fully spoiled or released. So that's what we're going to kind of be waiting for. But other than that, thank you for your support on this series. And thank you to all of our patrons for being awesome, for being you. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by liking, commenting, subscribing, or if you want to go above and beyond, you can join all these awesome people on this patron list here. Huge thank you. Get ready for the ARKHAM Pete deck. I'm actually playing it through a campaign on the channel coming up in the near future, and it is very fun. It's a very fun deck, so I hope you enjoy that one. We'll see you for the next one. Have a good one, and as always, a GG's.